Hi y'all, welcome back to the garden. It's super humid this evening. We've not really had any rain, but it's been raining a little bit south of us, and the humidity is probably just like 100%. It's not even but like 74 out here, and it's really, really wet. But today we are going to be doing a Heuchera river, which I was inspired several years ago from a magazine. I guess it was probably their annual catalog from 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 Nurseries. Had a photo of it, of this, I don't know exactly if it was a park, I can't remember, and I looked for a picture and I couldn't find it in several previous videos, but it was just all these different colored Heuchera, just mixed in and growing kind of like a stream through this park. And so I attempted this at the last home with some Heuchera, and that did not turn out really well. I used different brands of Heuchera to kind of get the colors that I wanted, and some of the brands Heuchera fizzled out and didn't even grow in their first year and died. So I have always been a big proponent since that time of growing proven winners brands of Heuchera, because I have grown their Heuchera for several years, and all of the ones that I've grown have done pretty well. Some are stronger than others, but I'm going to show you the ones I picked today, the ones I'm going to be using for this project, and the ones I'm going to save for a different, more shady location, because they seem to be burning already in their plug trays, and I don't want the crinkly foliage out here with the rest of them. Proven Winners has done a tremendous job over the past several years breeding from really good stock. Some of you may have grown Heuchera before and they may fizzle out after a few years. They're also doing some breeding with 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 and Heuchera and crossing those between each other. And so you'll see some things on their website if you look called 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲. And if you find one of those varieties, I would recommend recommend snatching that up somewhere, because they are really vigorous and really long lasting. And Red Rover's my favorite 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 from the Proven Winners collection. I'm going to be integrating it into this Heuchera river. So it is going to be mostly Heuchera with a 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 in there. Let's see what others I got for this project. Heuchera is also traditionally very much a shade plant, but the breeding that has been done with them has allowed them to take more sun. Now these will be put in full sun, so we'll be testing how full sun they are. I know Red Rover can take full sun because I had upwards of 50 of those or more in the last garden, and they love it. Even when it's a little dry, I did have drip in the beds. They didn't necessarily touch all of the Heuchera or the 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲, but Red Rover shines in full sun. But here's the name here. This one is Wild Berry. It's an older variety, but it seems to be doing pretty good in full sun. These have been sitting in sun for about a week and a half, and they've been getting daily irrigation, which is helpful. But I'll show you another purple over here that was also in full sun next to Wild Berry, and it burned a little bit. So I'm going to be utilizing it probably in a more shady location than in this bed right here. Now there is a Venus dogwood right there. It's tiny right now, but it'll grow up and provide some more shade in this area eventually. And the tree, the big tree, will provide a little bit of shade in the morning. So this area will be getting not all day sun, but definitely probably 6 hours of sun. And then I'll make sure and run drip irrigation along through this patch. One of my other favorites is Black Pearl, which I've grown for quite a number of years as well. Really beautiful, striking, dark purple foliage to the extent that it almost looks black, and the back of the leaves are purple. Peachberry Ice I really love because it's an interesting color in the collection that none of the others exhibit quite. It may not completely show it in the image here because these are so tiny, but these do get some interesting veining on them. And if you turn them upside down, you can kind of see that, but it's more like a silvery colored veining when they develop a little more. You can see all the new ones in there, and they have more of a different color foliage as they emerge and change, which is some characteristics Heuchera have. We have this one right here, which is a yellow, which is looking really good. This is Ball Gown. This is a newer one in the collection. They have a whole dressed up series. So this is Ball Gown. I think I'm getting one to trial called Prom Dress. And I think there's a couple more, but I can't remember the names. But I wanted a nice chartreuse, yellowy looking Heuchera for a pop to contrast against some of these others, and this is it. Behind it there's Wild Rose. Now, Wild Rose was one I was originally going to get, and I think it was back ordered, and then they removed it from my order, and so I picked Wildberry over it, and then Wild Rose came back into order, and so I ended up just keeping it on the order. But you can see it burned a little bit in the sun, so not looking quite as good, so I'm going to forego putting it in this collection. I might integrate a few of them here just to see how well it performs in this location, or tucking them in strategic locations where they'll get more sun. But you can see I did put 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 catmint, a patch of it here, so I couldn't make the river super wide right here, but I did kind of make it go under this hydrangea here. That hydrangea may grow up and shade some of those. I know eventually some of these will have to probably be removed as they get bigger too, but right now I want it really full with lots of pops of color. So I think I've got about 85 holes dug here for these plugs, and it just kind of weaves through here among all of these boxwoods that I need to shape up. These boxwoods were originally here, but they were planted next to the house, and I dug them up in late summer, early fall, so you can see a little burning on their leaves as they were transplanted last year. So coming through and shaping those up will be nice. But I dug all of these holes fairly quickly, and I'm just going to go through and pop a random color Heuchera in this entire bed space. And so it goes all the way to the other side of the bed here, which I think will be really nice, and on both sides of the boxwood. So it'll weave from this side of the flower bed right here all the way around these boxwoods on both sides to the other part of the sidewalk very gracefully, I think. Now, if you've never grown Heuchera, they do bloom. They put up a little shoot, kind of like a hosta, that has these tiny, tiny little flowers on them that look a little bit like bells. So the common name for these plants are coral bells. But I don't necessarily grow them for their flowers. They can look kind of cute tucked in flower arrangements because they're really delicate. But they're also plants that you could come through and just snip off those flower stalks as they start blooming. They'll do that in the spring or early summer, and then you can snip them off like you do your hostas, and then they'll just be a nice foliage over the fall. Now, a lot of them here in Southwest Ohio are partially evergreen. The foliage can look a little ratty by the time winter's completely done, but depending on the variety, you may have color evergreen all winter in your flower bed, which is really nice. Now that these can take more sun, you can put them out where they'll get a little more sun and be more of a shining aspect to your garden year-round. One thing I did do first before I dug the holes is I came through with this hoe right here to scrape all of the weeds up, which I'm going to be doing to the rest of this bed. This is a brand called Rogue Hoe, and I've had this for several years, and it's really nice for weeding because it's got a really sharp both top corner edges there, and the back is also sharp. So you really just slide it along the ground and it cuts weeds off at the root, or if you apply a little pressure, you can kind of get under the root a little bit. Since these were small weeds that were just now rooting in, they were able to be knocked up really quickly, and then they'll just dry out and die. And so I'm going to be doing this to the rest of this flower bed because I showed you in the last video I had a lot of weeds from this mulch or from the high winds we had in the fall after I applied this. And this will make that job much quicker. I just spent like 10 minutes or so going through this little patch. So the entire flower bed will take a little bit of time, but it'll be much quicker than hand pulling these. So I'm going to set the camera down and just do a little time lapse of kind of sorting these out. No particular order. I'm just going to try and make it as varied as possible so it looks like a mix. Some may end up the same colors directly together depending on how many holes I have in any particular order, but mixing it up nicely will look great too. You could also get super like fancy and do like colors, stripes, and all sorts of other things if you wanted to. I'm just looking for something. It's obviously not very natural, but it will be striking with all the colors mixed together. So that took 10 to 15 minutes to kind of spread those out. I do have a couple that are next to each other. I am using only 5 to 6 varieties, so if you had way more varieties than that, you could definitely do a better job of mixing them up probably, but a lot of the colors of the Heuchera are very similar, so you have a ton of purples, reds to oranges, some chartreuse to yellows, and that's about it on the market right now as far as colors, so you kind of limited, but it does end up really pretty. So let's turn around the camera and see what it looks like before I plant them. Here we go. I really like this chartreuse color. I did incorporate a little bit of the wild rose, and they're right there. That's the only place I could find to stick them, is right there. I had a couple leftover spots and not as many leftover of the other colors, but I really like just how it looks right now without them planted. I'm gonna go through and plant them up right quick. It'll take a little bit, not too long, because I've already got all the holes dug, and I'll roughly cover them up, show you the final result, and then I'm going to turn the sprinkler on right here to get them watered in for the evening. I've mentioned it several times, but I'm kind of in mad rush mode because my annuals arrive this coming Friday, and it's supposed to rain nearly all week. So I'm trying to get most of my perennials, and these Heuchera were the bulk of what's left over in the trays. I do have some lavender and a few leftover shade perennials that I'd like to use in like a bed underneath this. So I may pot those up into bigger containers and let them grow on a little bit. And just keep them watered, but I can see the dwindling perennials coming to an end. So that's pretty good progress, planting almost 600, and I probably have planted 600 over the past week and a half. They are plugs, makes it a little easier, but still quite an accomplishment. All right, so I'm done planting, and I went through and double checked and triple checked that I got everything planted. When you're planting a bunch of plugs like this, sometimes you'll accidentally miss one. And I just wanted to make sure they didn't dry out or anything. So I'll turn the camera around and you can look and see what it looks like. All right, here it is. So I think it's gonna look really cool. Maybe in just a couple weeks as these things start getting rooted in and putting on new growth. Right now, all of the leaves are kind of bunched together because of the way they were planted. But as they settle in, they'll spread out a little more. So I'm really impressed with this yellow, this prom dress. It's so vigorous. Just since I got it from plugs a week and a half ago, it's like doubled in size already. So that's one thing I like about these new breeding of Heuchera. They are so vigorous. And like I said, Red Rover is super vigorous. And some of these will get really big. So the goal with how close I planted these, because some Heuchera get wider than others, is to have obviously a complete mat of color that blocks all weeds and the soil, so I don't have to put down a bunch of mulch or anything. So I think it's going to be really lovely, and I'm hoping it turns out really well, and we'll follow along this season and see how it does. Thank y'all for following along this evening as we got some Heuchera planted and another project checked off the list and more plants in the ground. So a lot of the things I have left now are the roses for the rose wall and the bigger shrubs that I picked up from 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 several weeks ago, the castle wall holly, the castle spire holly, and some of those other things that are going to go around the shrub border. I'm going to start that project after I do the irrigation, and tomorrow it's supposed to be pretty nice, and I don't think it's supposed to rain. It's supposed to be cloudy. It may be really humid like today, but I'm going to try and get the trencher out and at least dig the pipe to start the irrigation there. So if I don't do it tomorrow, it's going to rain a lot this week and it'll be really difficult to do. And then my annuals will be in and I'll be way more behind. So thanks for following along, y'all. And remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.